you think a 12-year-old should be able to consent to sex with an adult?
Here's what I think. I think that different people mature at different rates. Everyone would agree with that.
Let's ask that question again, though.
Okay.
If I may.
Absolutely.
Do you think a 12-year-old, do you think any 12-year-old can consent to sex with an adult?
It doesn't sound good, but a mature adult that understands the concept of consent. Why should we limit someone by their age?
Ooh.
Why should we couple age with consent?
My man, this is not going to look good on Twitter later.
All right. That's what I want to say.
I think a 12-year-old can consent to sex with an adult, that's horrid. That's what we call rape.
Statutory rape is defined as someone who's under 18 or different states. And again, I come back to the point. I think age and consent should be decoupled. That's my stance.
Well, I'm not speechless very often, but you've left me speechless because that's totally insane.
Hi, I'm Nat, and today I want to talk about the United Nations and Minnesota. And while it might not seem like they're really connected at all, unfortunately in this case they are. So first with Minnesota. Minnesota yesterday almost passed a bill that would have changed their human rights code to allow for pedophilia to be classified as a protected sexual orientation. Luckily, a Republican lawmaker was able to stop it, but it almost passed. So this was suggested and brought forth to the House by a trans representative. And let's go read about it because it gets kind of wild. I don't really support or like Redux, but they're writing about this in a pretty honest way. So let's read it. Transgender state representative moves to allow sexual attachment to children to be classified as protected sexual orientation. And this is the lovely representative that wanted to do that. Let's move this over. A trans-identified male politician who drafted a bill declaring a Minnesota refuge state for the medical transitioning of minors has proposed an amendment to state legislation removing a stipulation that prohibits sexual attachment to children from being classified as a protected sexual orientation. So this is what it used to look like. But this section you see here that's crossed out did not pass. So what this section would do is say, yes, pedophilia can be a sexual orientation, and that is what this person wanted to do. Harry Niska is the Minnesota legislator that was able to amend so it would include that pedophilia is not protected as a sexual orientation and is not an identity. So he says a glimmer of common sense and all agree and vote in the House tonight for this amendment to close a potential loophole created by HF 447. And so they did bring it back. They did put that it is not a protected class under this chapter. So, I mean, a glimmer of hope, but that just came in yesterday or on April 26th. It just before it passed, they were able to stop it. So that is one good thing. So now to the United Nations part of this. So the United Nations has an organization called UNAids, which is their AIDS, HIV advocacy arm and branch. And on Women's Day, on March 8th, they came out with these new legal principles to advance decriminalization efforts towards AIDS. But within them, there were some very weird and a little bit disturbing aspects of it that have to do and connect to this whole pedophilia, sexualization of children. So Principle 16 is the one I'm most concerned about because it has the most to do with this, and it is about consent. Moreover, sexual conduct involving persons below the domestically prescribed minimum age of consent to sex may be consensual, in fact, if not in law. This is the important part. They're saying that children can consent to sex regardless of their age, regardless who with. In this context, the enforcement of criminal law should reflect the rights and capacity of persons under 18 years of age to make decisions about engaging in consensual sexual conduct and their right to be heard in matters concerning them. So now children can decide to have sex with an adult. Pursuant to their evolving capacities and progressive autonomy, persons under 18 years of age should participate in decisions affecting them, with due regard to their age, maturity, and best interests, and with specific attention to non-discrimination guarantees. So what they seem to be saying is that a child or a person under 18 years of age could consent to sex with an adult, because children are not very easy to influence at all. Again, especially by people in positions of authority. It's not like we've had scandal after scandal in churches, in schools, in daycares, in all sorts of places where an adult has power over a child and can then convince them to consent to do things that are not appropriate for them to be doing. It is the same argument, and it is a very slippery slope with puberty blockers, for example, or gender-affirming care or surgeries. There's people that say that if children can consent to that, then they can also consent to sex, or vice versa with adults. And there is more on that in that is also disturbing in those principles, those legal principles that UNAids launched. And I would recommend you go see a very good and thorough breakdown of it by the LOTUSEATERS. So you can find it, I'll put it on a card up here. And it seems like nobody really wants to talk about the big pedophilic elephant in the room, where trans activists and gender ideologues, it seems, are now going to start transitioning from the trans thing, which is pretty much now codified in a lot of laws with self-ID laws and self-identification and gender identity, into minor attracted people. And they started with, yes, children can consent to surgeries and to be infertile for the rest of their lives. And now they're saying, well, they can also, we should take into account their opinions about having sex with adults. And they're starting to switch it into now a fight for rights for minor attracted people or youth attracted people. They have a flag now. They have groups online. Everywhere, in the open, on TikTok, on Twitter, it's everywhere. So if you're part of the LGBTQ, I don't think it's a community anymore, but start speaking out, because they've completely tainted everything, and every actual advancement that was made is now being completely crushed by these insane activists who think that this is okay and that they can do it out so out in the open and try to pass laws about it. The world we live in. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.